I'm Vanessa, 32 years old, and I've always been the family disappointment. At our annual holiday dinner, everyone was dressed in designer outfits, laughing over champagne in my parents' mansion. I mentioned my company's latest success when my mother's voice cut through the chatter. "You're an embarrassment to this family," she announced loud enough for the entire table to hear. They all laughed. I shrank into my chair, feeling worthless despite my multi-million-dollar business. Then my assistant Diana walked in and whispered something that changed everything. Before I dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to my channel for more stories about standing up for yourself. Trust me, you'll want to hear what Diana said next. Growing up as the middle child in the Carter family meant living in perpetual shadow. My older sister Madison was the golden child, a Harvard Law graduate who married Kenneth, a neurosurgeon from an equally prestigious family. My younger brother Tyler was the family prodigy, a Wall Street financial analyst engaged to Victoria, the daughter of a prominent senator. And then there was me, Vanessa, the creative one who couldn't seem to follow the carefully planned trajectory my parents had mapped out. My parents, Gerald and Evelyn Carter, came from old money. Our family name was associated with banking, real estate, and country club memberships. Success in our household was measured by prestigious universities, professional titles, and strategic marriages. My father built his investment firm from family money, while my mother orchestrated our social presence with meticulous attention to appearances. School was always difficult for me, not because I lacked intelligence, but because my mind worked differently. While Madison memorized textbooks and Tyler excelled at mathematics, I doodled in margins and questioned traditional frameworks. My report cards were filled with comments like bright but unfocused and needs to apply herself. Each parent-teacher conference ended with my mother's tight smile and my father's disappointed sigh. "Vanessa just doesn't seem to understand what's at stake here," my mother would say during family discussions about my future. "Everyone in this family has attended Ivy League schools for generations." Instead of following the prescribed path, I dropped out of college after 2 years to start a small graphic design business. My parents treated this decision as a personal affront, a deliberate rejection of family values rather than a pursuit of my strengths. What began as a one-woman operation designing websites for local businesses gradually evolved into Carter Creative Technologies, a software company specializing in design tools for creative professionals. By 32, I was running a company valued at over $50 million, with offices in 3 cities and a staff of 80 talented individuals. Yet, in my family's eyes, I remained the underachiever, the embarrassment, the one who couldn't quite get it right. Family gatherings were exercises in patience and resilience. Last Thanksgiving, my mother introduced me to her friends as our daughter who's doing some sort of computer thing. At Christmas, my father asked when I was going to get a real job or at least find a husband with one. Each backhanded compliment and dismissive comment added another layer to the wall I'd built around my heart. This year's holiday dinner was particularly important. My company had just secured a major partnership with Adobe, a deal that had been featured in several technology publications. I'd finally bought my own home, a modern penthouse apartment overlooking the city. These were achievements worth celebrating, and some small part of me still yearned for my family's approval. I spent hours preparing for the dinner, selecting a conservative but elegant black dress that cost more than my first month's rent when I started my business. I styled my hair in a sleek updo, applied makeup that enhanced without drawing criticism, and selected jewelry that was expensive enough to meet my mother's standards without appearing flashy. The final touch was bringing Diana, my executive assistant of 3 years. Diana wasn't just an employee, she had become my confidant and friend. At 35, she was slightly older than me and brought valuable experience from her previous corporate roles. She understood family dynamics better than most, having navigated her own complicated relationships. Are you sure you want me there? Diana asked when I extended the invitation. Family dinners can be intense. That's exactly why I need you, I admitted. You're the only one who sees me for who I actually am. Diana was exceptionally observant and intuitive. She could read a room better than anyone I knew, anticipating needs before they were expressed. She also possessed remarkable research skills, a talent that had benefited our business countless times. What I didn't know was how those skills would transform this particular evening. As we drove to my parents' estate in the hills outside the city, Diana reviewed our exit strategy. If you signal by touching your earring twice, I'll create a business emergency that requires our immediate attention, she said, only half joking. I might need that before we even finish appetizers, I laughed, but the knot in my stomach tightened as we approached the imposing gates of my childhood home. Diana squeezed my hand as we walked to the door. Remember, their opinion of you isn't the truth of who you are. I nodded, took a deep breath, and rang the doorbell, hoping against hope that this time would be different. This time, maybe they would see me. The massive oak door swung open to reveal my mother's personal assistant, not my mother herself. Clara gave us a practiced smile, took our coats, and directed us toward the formal dining room. Even from the entryway, I could hear the tinkling of crystal glasses and polite laughter, the soundtrack of privilege and performative happiness. My parents' estate was a monument to traditional wealth. Persian rugs covered marble floors, oil paintings of stern ancestors lined the hallways, and every surface gleamed with the evidence of daily professional cleaning. The 12-foot Christmas tree in the foyer was decorated in a precise silver and blue theme, matching the carefully wrapped packages beneath it. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was authentic. Vanessa, you finally arrived, my mother announced as we entered the dining room, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. We were about to start without you. I glanced at my own watch. We were 5 minutes early. Sorry for the delay, Mrs. Carter, Diana interjected smoothly. Traffic was heavier than expected. My mother gave Diana a dismissive once-over. And you brought your secretary. How nice. Executive assistant, I corrected. Diana Lewis. She's been instrumental in our recent Adobe partnership. My father emerged from his position by the bar cart, tumbler of scotch in hand. The computer thing? Well, at least someone's keeping you organized. He turned to Diana. God knows Vanessa has always needed extra help staying focused. Madison glided over, perfect in her red designer dress, her husband Kenneth trailing behind her. Diana, lovely to meet you. I hope my sister isn't working you too hard at her little startup. It's actually a mid-sized technology company now, Diana replied with professional warmth. And Vanessa is an exceptional boss. Tyler approached with his fiancée Victoria on his arm. He gave me a perfunctory hug that barely made contact. Hey sis. Heard you sold some software or something. We finalized a strategic partnership that integrates our design platform with Adobe Creative Suite, I explained. It's potentially a game changer for our growth trajectory. Blank stares met my explanation. It's like when Daddy's firm secured that deal with Merrill Lynch, Madison translated for the family, though the comparison barely scratched the surface of what my team had accomplished. Shall we sit? My mother directed, effectively ending any further discussion of my work. The dining table was set for 12, with my parents at opposite ends. I was seated between my Aunt Patricia, who was hard of hearing, and my cousin Brandon, who hadn't spoken to me directly in years. Diana was positioned at the far end, beside the empty chair reserved for my chronically late Uncle Robert. Dinner began with my mother's traditional holiday toast. To family excellence and upholding the Carter name, she said, raising her crystal flute of champagne. Everyone clinked glasses and murmured in agreement. The first course arrived, a delicate butternut squash soup that probably contained more butter than squash. Conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. Madison just won the Henderson case, my father announced proudly. 7 figures for the firm. Kenneth's department received another research grant, Madison added, patting her husband's hand. His work on neuroplasticity is revolutionizing the field. Tyler's been offered a position on the Willington board, my mother continued, the youngest member in their history. And Victoria's father has connections to get us the perfect venue for the wedding, Tyler chimed in. 8-month waiting list, but he made one call. I focused on my soup, feeling increasingly invisible. Diana caught my eye from across the table and gave me a subtle, supportive nod. When the main course arrived, my mother turned her attention to my personal life. Vanessa, whatever happened to that nice investment banker you were dating? Jason, was it? Jordan, I corrected. And that ended over a year ago. Such a shame. He had wonderful family connections. He also had a wonderful habit of belittling my career and expecting me to abandon it when we got married, I said, cutting into my prime rib with perhaps more force than necessary. My father waved his hand dismissively. These career women and their priorities. In my day, family came first. Family is important, I agreed, seizing an opening. Actually, I wanted to share some news. Our company just secured a partnership that's projected to triple our valuation. Forbes is doing a feature on me for their 40 Under 40 issue next month. Instead of congratulations, my announcement was met with uncomfortable silence. That's nice, dear, my mother finally said. Madison, tell everyone about the charity gala you're chairing. As Madison launched into a detailed description of her philanthropic efforts, I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. Diana excused herself quietly, mentioning a phone call she needed to make. I watched her go, wishing I had a similar escape route. The dessert course brought a spectacular crème brûlée and an escalation in family dynamics. My aunt mentioned seeing my company mentioned in a magazine at her doctor's office. It was some sort of women in business feature, she said, turning her hearing aid up. I told my doctor that's my niece. For a moment, I felt a glimmer of recognition until my mother cleared her throat. Yes, well, it's a rather niche industry, isn't it? Not exactly mainstream success. She took a delicate bite of her dessert. Though I suppose it keeps you busy while you're between relationships. Something in me snapped. Years of diminishment crystallized into a moment of defiance. Actually, Mother, my niche industry generated $17 million in revenue last quarter. Our software is used by design professionals in 43 countries. I employ 80 people who receive competitive salaries and benefits. I'm not keeping busy. I'm building something meaningful. The table went silent. My father's face reddened. Madison examined her manicure. Tyler smirked into his wine glass. Then my mother placed her dessert spoon down with a delicate clink. Vanessa, she said, her voice carrying that particular blend of disappointment and disdain she'd perfected over decades. Money isn't everything. There's a certain way the Carter family presents itself. Your unconventional choices reflect on all of us. She raised her voice, ensuring everyone at the table could hear. You're an embarrassment to this family. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Then Tyler snickered, which triggered a cascade of uncomfortable laughter around the table. Victoria covered her mouth, eyes dancing with amusement. Kenneth shook his head with performative sympathy. Even Aunt Patricia, who probably hadn't heard clearly, joined the laughter out of social conditioning. I sat frozen, 32 years old yet suddenly feeling like a scolded child. All my accomplishments, all my hard work, reduced to a family joke. I stared at my half-eaten dessert, blood rushing in my ears, fighting back tears that I refused to shed in front of them. Then I felt a presence behind me. Diana had returned to the dining room, her expression unreadable. She leaned down, her lips close to my ear, and whispered something that would change the dynamic of this family forever. Your family business is 3 months from bankruptcy, Diana whispered, her voice so low that only I could hear. Your father has leveraged everything. The Carter Investment Group has been hemorrhaging clients for 2 years. They've been borrowing against this house. Madison's husband is facing a malpractice suit that their insurance won't cover. Tyler's hedge fund lost 60% of its value last quarter. They need you, not the other way around. I turned to look at her, searching for any sign that this was merely a kind fiction designed to make me feel better. Diana's expression was composed but serious. She gave a slight nod, confirming the truth of her words. "How do you know this?" I whispered back. "I made some calls. Your brother mentioned their company's name earlier, and something seemed off. I have a contact at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Public records confirm the rest. I can show you the documentation when we leave." My mind reeled with this information. The perfect Carter family image, the success that had been weaponized against me for decades, was a carefully maintained illusion. As I processed this revelation, other pieces began falling into place. My mother's recent comments about investment fluctuations, my father's increased drinking, Madison's sudden interest in simplifying their lifestyle, Tyler's uncharacteristic questions about my business model during our brief Thanksgiving conversation. A complex cocktail of emotions washed over me. There was shock, certainly, but also a perverse satisfaction that made me immediately uncomfortable. These were still my family members, despite their treatment of me. Yet beneath those feelings was something else: clarity. For years, I had measured myself against a standard that wasn't just unfair but fictional. Diana slid back into her seat, her expression betraying nothing of what she had just revealed. The conversation around the table had moved on, my humiliation already yesterday's news, as they discussed the details of Tyler and Victoria's upcoming wedding. "The Andersons have offered their summer estate for the reception," my mother was saying. 12 acres of waterfront property, and the photographs will be magnificent. I studied my family with new eyes. My father's seemingly confident posture now revealed tension in his shoulders. The slight tremor in his hand as he reached for his third scotch wasn't just age. My mother's meticulously applied makeup couldn't quite hide the stress lines around her eyes. Madison's laugh was too loud, too forced. Tyler kept checking his phone under the table, his expression darkening with each glance. "Is everything all right, Vanessa?" my mother asked, noticing my scrutiny. "You look strange." I composed my features into a neutral expression. "Just thinking about work," I replied. "We have some big decisions coming up." "Always with the work," my father muttered. "There's more to life than computer programs, you know." "Speaking of work," Madison interjected, "Vanessa, I've been meaning to ask about your company's structure. Kenneth and I were discussing investment diversification, and we wondered if you'd ever considered taking on family investors." The question that would have seemed casual before now carried obvious weight. I caught Diana's eye, and she gave me an almost imperceptible shake of her head. "We're actually fully funded through our next expansion phase," I replied carefully. "Our board is quite selective about new investors." Tyler leaned forward. "But surely family would be different? I mean, we could bring valuable connections to the table." "The same connections that made me an embarrassment to this family 15 minutes ago?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. An uncomfortable silence descended on the table. My mother cleared her throat. "Perhaps we could continue this conversation in the living room," she suggested. "Clara has prepared coffee and cordials." As the family migrated toward the living room, I signaled to Diana that I needed a moment. We stepped into my father's study, a wood-paneled room that smelled of leather and cigars. "Tell me everything," I said once the door was closed. Diana pulled out her phone and showed me a series of documents she'd accessed: public financial disclosures, real estate records, court filings. The evidence was clear and devastating. Carter Investment Group has lost 70% of its client base in the past 18 months, Diana explained. "Your father made a series of high-risk investments that went bad. They've remortgaged this house twice. The cars are leased. The country club membership is 3 months in arrears." She swiped to another document. Madison's husband Kenneth is named in a malpractice suit involving a 30-year-old patient who suffered permanent brain damage during a routine procedure. Their insurance is disputing coverage due to a technical violation in protocol. Another swipe. Tyler's hedge fund, which he presented as his own venture, is actually a subsidiary of your father's company. His brilliant investments were following your father's failing strategy. Their major client pulled out last month, taking $40 million in assets. I sank into my father's leather chair, trying to process it all. And they're keeping up appearances because image is everything in their industry, Diana said. Once word gets out about financial instability, the remaining clients will flee. It's a house of cards. Why are they bringing it up now? The questions about investing in my company. Diana's expression was grim. Based on the timeline I've pieced together, they need a significant cash infusion within the next 3 months to prevent complete collapse. Your company is probably the only viable lifeline they have left. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache forming. So what do I do with this information? Throw it in their faces? Walk away? Diana sat in the chair opposite me. That's entirely your decision. But whatever you decide, do it from a position of knowledge, not from the narrative they've created about you. I nodded, taking a deep breath. I need a strategy. I can't just walk back in there and pretend I don't know. You're a businesswoman, Diana reminded me. Approach it like a business situation. Assess, evaluate, negotiate. She was right. For years, I had entered family interactions as the designated failure, accepting their framing of my worth and accomplishments. Now I had information that changed everything. The question was how to use it, not just to protect myself and my company, but also to potentially reshape family dynamics that had been toxic for decades. Okay, I said, standing up. Let's go back in before they send a search party. As we walked toward the living room, Diana whispered one last thing. Just remember, you're the strong one here. You built something real while they were constructing a facade. With those words strengthening my resolve, I rejoined my family, prepared to navigate the conversation in an entirely new way. The living room presented a picture of casual luxury. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, illuminating the family portraits on the mantel. Everyone had settled into their usual positions, my father in his leather armchair, my mother perched on the edge of the silk-upholstered sofa, Madison and Kenneth sharing the love seat, Tyler standing by the drink cart mixing another cocktail. Clara moved silently around the periphery, offering a silver tray of coffee cups and crystal glasses of amber liquid. As Diana and I entered, the conversation paused briefly before resuming with forced casualness. I accepted a coffee from Clara, added a splash of cream, and chose a seat that gave me a clear view of everyone's faces. Vanessa, we were just discussing family investments, my father said, cutting straight to the point. Your mother and I have been thinking it might be time to diversify the Carter portfolio. I took a slow sip of coffee, using the moment to collect my thoughts. That's interesting timing. I was under the impression that the Carter portfolio was extensively diversified already. A flash of unease crossed my father's face. Well, yes, of course. But we're always looking for new opportunities. And keeping things in the family has obvious advantages. Madison leaned forward. What Dad's trying to say is that we'd love to support your business. Family backing each other up. That sort of thing. Support, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. That would be a significant change in family policy. My mother frowned. Vanessa, there's no need for that tone. We've always supported you. I set my coffee cup down carefully. Have you? I seem to recall being called an embarrassment to the family less than an hour ago. You're being oversensitive, my father interjected. Your mother was just expressing concern about your unconventional career choices. My unconventional career choices have built a company valued at over $50 million, I said evenly. A company that, unlike Carter Investment Group, isn't 3 months from insolvency. The room went utterly silent. My father's face drained of color. My mother's hand flew to her pearl necklace. Madison and Kenneth exchanged alarmed glances. Tyler's drink sloshed over the rim of his glass. "What are you talking about?" my father finally managed, attempting indignation but achieving only fear. I turned to Diana, who handed me her tablet. Public financial disclosures from the last 4 quarters show a consistent downward trend in both client retention and asset management at Carter Investment Group. Real estate records indicate 2 additional mortgages taken out on this property in the past year. Court records show a pending malpractice suit against Kenneth that Physicians Mutual is refusing to cover due to protocol violations. I swiped to the next screen. Additionally, Tyler's hedge fund, which is actually a subsidiary of Dad's company, lost its primary investor last month, resulting in a $40 million withdrawal. Tyler slammed his glass down. "You had no right to dig into our private business." "Actually, all of this information is publicly available," Diana interjected calmly. "Anyone conducting due diligence before a potential investment would discover the same facts." My father struggled to regain control of the situation. "These are temporary setbacks. All businesses face fluctuations. A 70% client loss isn't a fluctuation, Dad. It's a collapse." I kept my voice level, not allowing anger to color my words. "You've been presenting yourselves as the pinnacle of success while ridiculing my achievements. All while your business was failing." My mother stood abruptly. "This is inappropriate dinner conversation. We should discuss this another time." "When would be more appropriate, Mother?" "After you've secured my investment? After you've used my company to bail out the family you claim I'm an embarrassment to." Madison stepped in, ever the mediator. "Vanessa, you're blowing this out of proportion." "Yes, there have been some challenges, but that's why family needs to stick together." "Interesting perspective," I replied. "Where was this family unity when I was starting my company? When I was working 18-hour days and living on ramen noodles to make payroll? When I reached out for advice and was told I was wasting my time on a hobby?" Kenneth cleared his throat. "Perhaps we've all been a bit short-sighted. Your success is commendable, Vanessa. And yes, we could use some assistance navigating these temporary difficulties." "Temporary?" I raised an eyebrow. "The malpractice suit alone could cost millions. Your patient suffered permanent brain damage, Kenneth." "That's not temporary for them." Kenneth's face hardened. "That situation is being handled." "By whom?" "The insurance company that's denying coverage." I turned to address the entire room. "I know exactly what's happening here. You've run out of options. The banks won't extend more credit. Your remaining clients are getting nervous. You need cash, and you've realized that the family disappointment might be your only salvation." My father rose shakily to his feet. "That's enough. I will not be spoken to this way in my own home." "The home you can't afford anymore?" The words escaped before I could filter them, and I immediately regretted the cruelty. I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. That was unnecessary." The apology seemed to deflate my father's anger, leaving only weariness in its place. He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he said quietly. "We were trying to secure the family legacy." "By taking excessive risks with other people's money?" I asked, softening my tone. "By maintaining appearances at all costs?" My mother's carefully composed facade cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't understand the pressure. The expectations. Our position in society depends on certain standards." For the first time, I saw my parents not as the imposing figures who had dominated my life, but as frightened people who had built their identity on shifting sand. Tyler, always the most volatile, wasn't ready to surrender. "So what now? You've exposed us. Are you enjoying your moment of superiority? Going to walk out and leave us to deal with this mess?" I turned to him. "Is that what you think of me? That I take pleasure in your hardship?" "Wouldn't you?" he challenged. "After how we've treated you?" I considered his question seriously. There had been a moment of satisfaction when Diana first revealed the truth. I couldn't deny that. But it had quickly given way to more complex emotions. "No," I finally said. "I wouldn't." Because despite everything, you're still my family. Diana caught my eye, her expression conveying a silent question. How do you want to proceed? I took another deep breath. I'm willing to discuss how I might help. But things need to change. Fundamentally change. What kind of changes? My father asked warily. First, honesty. Complete financial transparency. No more secrets, no more facades. My mother looked horrified. But what will people think? They'll think you're human, I replied. And right now, being honest about your challenges is the only way to rebuild trust, both within this family and with your remaining clients. I turned to Diana. Can you outline the initial steps they should take? Diana nodded and addressed my father directly. You'll need to conduct a complete financial audit. Disclose the true situation to your remaining clients before they discover it elsewhere. Develop a restructuring plan that prioritizes stability over growth. Consider selling non-essential assets. My father looked ill at the prospect, but nodded reluctantly. And second, I continued, respect. Real respect, not the conditional kind that depends on following a prescribed path. No more dismissing my work or my choices. No more public humiliation. Madison spoke up. Vanessa, I think we can all agree that family communication could improve. That's putting it mildly, I said. I'm talking about a complete reset in how this family operates. No more measuring worth by external markers of success. No more performative perfectionism. Tyler scoffed. So we just abandoned the Carter family standards altogether? We redefine them, I said firmly. Success should be about integrity, innovation, and genuine human connection, not about maintaining appearances at all costs. I looked around the room, making eye contact with each family member. Those are my conditions for even considering any kind of financial involvement. If you can't commit to those changes, then I wish you luck, but I won't be part of it. A heavy silence filled the room as my family absorbed my words. Years of established dynamics were being challenged, and I could see the struggle playing out on their faces. Diana sat beside me, a quiet but solid presence, her subtle nod communicating her approval of my approach. Finally, my father spoke. What exactly are you proposing in terms of assistance? I recognized this as a pivotal moment. How I responded would set the tone for whatever came next. I glanced at Diana, who gave me an encouraging look. I'm not proposing anything specific yet, I replied carefully. What I'm offering is the opportunity for a real conversation about the future, both financial and relational. But that conversation can only happen if we're all operating from a place of truth and mutual respect. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed 11 times, marking the late hour and punctuating my ultimatum. My family looked at each other, silently communicating in the way long-established systems do when faced with disruption. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Perhaps we should all take some time to reflect on this discussion. I nodded, recognizing her need to save face. I think that would be wise. As Diana and I prepared to leave, gathering our coats from Clara, my father approached me awkwardly. Vanessa, he said, his voice lower than usual. We should talk. Soon. Just the two of us. I studied his face, seeing vulnerability there that had never been visible before. I'd like that, Dad. As we walked to the car, the night air crisp and clarifying, Diana squeezed my arm supportively. You handled that remarkably well. Did I? I wasn't sure. I felt drained yet somehow lighter, as if I'd set down a burden I'd been carrying for years. You offered boundaries and potential help in the same conversation, Diana said. That's a difficult balance to achieve. As we drove away from the family estate, I watched it recede in the side mirror. The imposing stone facade and perfectly manicured grounds suddenly seemed less like a symbol of success and more like a stage set, impressive from a distance but hollow behind the scenes. What happens now? I asked, more to myself than to Diana. That depends, she replied. On them, certainly. But also on what you truly want from the situation. It was a profound question, one I would need time to answer fully. What did I want? Vindication? Reconciliation? Both seemed incomplete on their own. Perhaps what I wanted most was authenticity, the freedom for all of us to stop performing and start connecting as real, flawed human beings. As the estate disappeared from view, I felt like I was driving toward not just my apartment, but toward a future where family relationships might finally be built on something solid and true. 3 days after the explosive holiday dinner, my father requested a meeting at my office. This choice of location was significant. For the first time, he was coming to my territory rather than summoning me to his. I arranged for us to use the conference room with views of the city's skyline, a space designed to impress clients and investors. Diana greeted him in the reception area and escorted him through our open-concept workspace. I watched from my glass-walled office as my father took in the environment, the collaborative design pods, the informal meeting areas, the wall displaying our company values and mission statement. His expression was difficult to read, somewhere between curiosity and discomfort. "Your father is here," Diana announced, showing him into my office. "Can I get either of you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be fine," my father said, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. After Diana left, an awkward silence fell between us. My father stood examining the awards and press mentions displayed on my office wall. Forbes 30 under 35, he read. Incorporated Magazine's Rising Tech Leaders. Innovation in Design Technology Award. He turned to me. "I didn't know about any of these." "You never asked," I said simply. He nodded, acknowledging the truth of my statement. "Your office is impressive. Very modern." "Thank you. We designed it to foster creativity and collaboration." Diana returned with water and a discreet reminder of my afternoon schedule. As she left, my father watched her with newfound respect. "Your assistant is quite thorough," he observed. Her research on our situation was comprehensive. "Diana is exceptional at her job," I agreed. "She's also fiercely loyal." My father took a seat across from me. "I suppose that's why she brought those financial details to your attention." "She was protecting me," I confirmed. "Just as I've always protected my team." He studied me with new eyes. "You've built something significant here, haven't you?" "Something real." "Yes, I have." He sighed heavily. "Vanessa, I won't waste time with excuses or denials. What Diana uncovered is accurate. The Carter Investment Group is in serious trouble. We've made some catastrophic mistakes, and now we're facing the consequences." His candor surprised me. I had expected more resistance, more attempts to minimize the situation. "How bad is it exactly?" I asked. "Worse than what your assistant discovered. We have perhaps 6 weeks before we default on our obligations, not 3 months. The malpractice suit against Kenneth is just one of 3 pending legal actions. Tyler's fund lost a second major investor yesterday." He rubbed his face wearily. "The house will be foreclosed unless we can make a substantial payment by the end of January." "And Mother? Does she understand the severity?" "Your mother is struggling with the reality. She's canceled her country club membership and returned some recent purchases, but she's having difficulty accepting that our lifestyle must change dramatically." I nodded, unsurprised. My mother's identity was wrapped up in social standing more than anyone else in the family. "What about Madison and Tyler?" "Madison is handling it better than I expected. She's already interviewing with smaller firms, preparing for the possibility that her current position might be affected by Kenneth's legal troubles." He shook his head. "Tyler is another story. He's angry, blaming everyone but himself. Victoria's parents are reconsidering the engagement now that his financial prospects have dimmed." I absorbed this information, feeling a complex mix of sympathy and vindication. "And what are you hoping for from me, specifically?" My father straightened in his chair, attempting to reclaim some dignity. "I was hoping you might consider a structured investment in what remains of our business. Or perhaps a loan secured against our remaining assets." "Dad," I said gently, "from a purely business perspective, that would be a terrible investment. Your company's debt-to-equity ratio is unsustainable. The pending litigation creates unquantifiable risk. And frankly, your business model hasn't adapted to changing market conditions in over a decade. He flinched, but didn't argue. I understand. I wouldn't invest in us either, in your position. That said, I continued, I'm not approaching this as only a business decision. You're my family, despite our complicated history. Hope flickered in his eyes. Then you'll help. I'm willing to consider options with conditions. I leaned forward. First, I need complete financial transparency. All accounts, all debts, all assets, no exceptions. Of course, he agreed quickly. Second, any assistance would be structured as a formal business arrangement with legal protections for my company and shareholders. He nodded again. Third, and most importantly, our family dynamics need to change. Permanently. No more dismissing my choices or demeaning my achievements. No more treating me as less valuable because I've followed a different path. This condition seemed to give him pause. Your mother may find that challenging. Then she'll need to decide what's more important, maintaining appearances or maintaining a roof over her head. The bluntness of my statement hung in the air between us. My father looked down at his hands, which I noticed were shaking slightly. You've become quite formidable, he said finally. I underestimated you. We all did. Yes, you did, I agreed without rancor. And that was your mistake, not mine. The intercom buzzed, and Diana's voice came through. Vanessa, your 1 o'clock appointment has arrived. Thank you, Diana. Please let them know I'll be with them shortly. I turned back to my father. I need to wrap this up for now. I'll have Diana coordinate with you to gather the financial documentation we need. Once I've reviewed everything, we can discuss specific options. My father stood, looking somewhat dazed by the business-like efficiency with which I was handling his crisis. Thank you for considering this, Vanessa. I know we haven't given you much reason to help us. As he reached the door, I called after him. Dad? For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're going through this. Failure doesn't define you any more than success does. That's something I had to learn on my own. He paused, seeming to absorb my words. Perhaps you could teach the rest of us. After he left, Diana entered with a folder containing information for my next meeting. How did it go? Better than expected, I replied. He was actually honest about their situation. That's a start, Diana said. What are you thinking in terms of help? I sighed. I'm not sure yet. I need to see the complete financial picture first. But I'm considering establishing a new division within our company that could absorb some of their legitimate client relationships. Maybe create some positions for family members who are willing to adapt and learn. Diana raised an eyebrow. Are you sure that's wise? Mixing family and business can be complicated. Oh, it will definitely be complicated, I agreed. But walking away completely doesn't feel right either. They're still my family, however dysfunctional. Just be careful not to sacrifice what you've built here, Diana cautioned. Your company culture is special. Introducing family dynamics could disrupt that. Her concern was valid. I'd worked hard to create an environment based on merit, collaboration, and mutual respect, values that had been notably absent from my family interactions. I'll proceed carefully, I promised. Any family involvement would come with clear boundaries and expectations. Over the next 2 weeks, the power shift in my family became increasingly evident. My mother called 3 times, each conversation more conciliatory than the last. Madison invited me to lunch, asking thoughtful questions about my business model and acknowledging her limited understanding of technology. Even Tyler reached out, his initial defensiveness giving way to reluctant respect when he reviewed our company's financial performance. The most striking change was in how they spoke to me. Gone were the dismissive comments and backhanded compliments. Instead, there was a new attentiveness, a recognition that I possessed knowledge and resources they needed. While part of this change was clearly motivated by self-interest, I detected genuine moments of reconsideration, tiny fractures in the rigid family hierarchy that had defined our relationships for decades. Diana remained my steadfast advisor throughout this transition, her insights invaluable as I navigated the complex intersection of family bonds and business decisions. One evening, as we worked late reviewing the Carter Investment Group's financial documents, she posed a question that cut to the heart of the matter. What do you really want from all this, Vanessa? Beyond helping your family financially, what outcome would feel right to you? I considered her question carefully. I want them to see me, really see me, for who I am. Not as the family disappointment or now as their financial savior, but as a person of value, independent of what I can do for them. Diana nodded thoughtfully. That's a profound desire, and a difficult one to fulfill through financial arrangements. I know, I acknowledged. Money can't buy genuine respect or understanding. But, Diana added, this situation has created an opening. How they respond to that opening will tell you a lot about whether real change is possible. She was right. The financial crisis had disrupted established patterns, creating potential for either genuine transformation or merely temporary accommodation until the crisis passed. The question was which path my family would choose and how I would respond to their choice. As the holiday season progressed, my position of newfound power brought unfamiliar responsibilities and questions. Was I helping my family or enabling dysfunctional patterns? Was I seeking healing or subtly exacting revenge? Was I protecting my boundaries or building new walls? These questions accompanied me into the new year as I prepared to present my family with a proposed solution to their financial crisis, one that would test all of us in ways we couldn't yet imagine. The January sky hung low and gray over the city as my family gathered in our company's main conference room. I had chosen this setting deliberately, creating a neutral professional space for what would be a pivotal conversation about our collective future. Diana had helped me prepare a comprehensive presentation outlining the current state of the Carter family finances and my proposed path forward. The digital display showed a series of sobering graphs and charts detailing the collapse of what had once seemed an unassailable family fortune. My father sat at the far end of the conference table, shoulders slumped but expression attentive. My mother sat beside him, perfectly coiffed as always but with tension evident in the tight set of her mouth. Madison and Kenneth occupied one side of the table, while Tyler sat alone on the other, Victoria having family obligations that prevented her attendance. Diana distributed folders containing printed copies of the presentation and took a seat beside me, her presence a quiet source of strength. Thank you all for coming, I began. Over the past 3 weeks, I've conducted a thorough review of the family's financial situation. What I found confirms the severity of the crisis you're facing. I clicked to the first slide, which showed the Carter Investment Group's client retention rates over 5 years, a steep downward curve that had accelerated in the past 18 months. The company has lost 83% of its client base since 2020, I explained. Current management strategies have proven ineffective at stemming this outflow. My father winced but didn't interrupt. The next slides detailed the mortgages on the family home, Kenneth's pending litigation, and Tyler's fund performance. With each revelation, the reality of their situation became increasingly undeniable. The bottom line, I concluded, is that without immediate intervention, Carter Investment Group will be forced into bankruptcy within the next 4 to 6 weeks. The family home will enter foreclosure, and the resulting publicity will likely trigger additional client departures, creating a downward spiral from which recovery would be extremely difficult. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. It's even worse than we thought. Yes, I agreed gently. But there are options. I clicked to a new slide titled Proposed Solution. After careful consideration, I'm prepared to offer the following assistance. First, the creation of a new division within Carter Creative Technologies focused on financial technology solutions. This division would absorb the remaining viable client relationships from Carter Investment Group, preserving those client assets and relationships. My father leaned forward. You'd take our clients? I'd save your clients, I corrected. Their investments would be transferred to more stable financial products managed through a new subsidiary that would carry the Carter name, maintaining continuity while separating them from the current legal and financial challenges. Madison nodded slowly. That makes sense from a liability perspective. Second, I continued, I would extend a personal loan secured against the family home, sufficient to prevent foreclosure and provide a 6-month runway for transition. This loan would be formally structured with market rate interest and clear repayment terms. And what about us? Tyler asked bluntly. Do we get positions in this new division? That's the third component, I confirmed. I'm offering opportunities for family members to join the new division in roles aligned with their skills and experience. These would be real positions with defined responsibilities and performance expectations, not symbolic titles. I clicked to a slide showing a proposed organizational chart. Dad, your relationships with certain long-term clients remain valuable. I'm proposing a senior advisor role focused on client retention during the transition. Madison, your legal background could be an asset in our compliance department. Kenneth, once his legal issues are resolved, might consult on healthcare technology projects. And Tyler, your financial analysis skills could be redirected toward emerging markets in financial technology. Tyler scoffed. So we'd all be working for you. You'd be working with me, I corrected. As part of a successful company with growth potential rather than a failing one with mounting liabilities. My mother, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. And what about our standing in the community? Our reputation? I had anticipated this concern. We would manage communication carefully, presenting this as a strategic merger rather than a rescue. The Carter name would continue on the new division, maintaining its presence in the financial community. That's thoughtful, my mother admitted, sounding surprised. There are conditions, I added, moving to the next slide. First, complete financial transparency going forward. No hidden accounts, no disguised liabilities. Everyone nodded, even Tyler. Second, family counseling. This statement was met with visible resistance. I'm serious about this. Our family dynamics contributed to the current crisis by preventing honest communication about problems until they became insurmountable. If we're going to work together, we need healthier patterns of interaction. My father cleared his throat. Is that really necessary? We're all adults here. It's non-negotiable, I said firmly. I'm not investing my company's resources in a system that's fundamentally dysfunctional. Madison, always the practical one, nodded. I think Vanessa's right. We clearly haven't been communicating effectively. And finally, I concluded, mutual respect. That means no more dismissing each other's choices or contributions. No more measuring worth by external markers of status. And no more public humiliation under any circumstances. I looked directly at my mother as I said this last part. She had the grace to look uncomfortable. These conditions apply to everyone, myself included, I added. I'm not interested in reversing our power dynamic so that I become the family critic. I want us to build something healthier for all of us. A heavy silence fell over the room as my family absorbed my proposal. It represented not just financial salvation, but a fundamental restructuring of our relationships. The magnitude of the change I was suggesting seemed to sink in gradually. You've put a lot of thought into this, my father finally said. Yes, I agreed. Because despite everything, you're my family. And I believe we can be better together than we have been. When would all this begin? Kenneth asked, ever focused on practical details. Immediately, I replied. The financial situation doesn't allow for delay. I've already had my legal team draft the necessary documents, which are in your folders. You'll need independent counsel to review them, of course. And if we don't agree to these terms? Tyler challenged. I met his gaze steadily. Then I wish you all the best, but I can't be involved. My offer is comprehensive, but it's also conditional. I won't sacrifice my company's stability or my personal well-being for a partial solution. Another silence fell as they contemplated the reality of their options, or lack thereof. "I think we need some time to discuss this privately," my father said finally. Of course, I agreed. "Diana will show you to the small conference room. Take whatever time you need." As my family filed out, Diana remained behind. "That was incredibly well done," she said quietly. "Clear, comprehensive, and compassionate without being a pushover. Do you think they'll accept?" I asked. "They don't have much choice," Diana pointed out. "But the real question is whether they'll embrace the spirit of the changes you're proposing or merely comply with the letter of the agreement." "That's what worries me," I admitted. "I don't want to create a situation where they resent me even more, just from a different position." "That's why the counseling condition is so important," Diana said. "It provides a structured way to address those feelings rather than letting them fester." My family's deliberation took nearly 2 hours. When they finally returned to the conference room, their expressions were solemn but resolved. "We accept your terms," my father announced, speaking for the group. "All of them, including the counseling?" I confirmed. "Including the counseling," he agreed. "Though I can't promise we'll be good at it immediately." I smiled at his small attempt at humor. "I don't expect perfection, just genuine effort." My mother approached me as the others reviewed the documents with Diana. "Vanessa," she began hesitantly, "I want to say, that is, I should acknowledge." "It's okay, Mom," I said, seeing her struggle. "We'll have plenty of time to work through things." She nodded, relief evident in her expression. "You've become quite remarkable, you know." "I'm not sure when that happened." "I've always been this person," I said gently. "You just couldn't see it through the lens of your expectations." She absorbed this, nodding slowly. "Perhaps you're right. Perhaps there's a lot I haven't seen clearly." As legal documents were signed and initial plans set in motion, I felt a curious mixture of emotions. Caution about the challenges ahead, pride in creating a solution that served multiple needs, and a tentative hope that real healing might be possible. Later that evening, Diana and I sat in my office, debriefing the day's events. "How are you feeling about all this?" she asked. "Honestly, terrified and optimistic in equal measure," I admitted. "We're embarking on something that could either heal decades of dysfunction or create entirely new problems." "True," Diana acknowledged. "But either way, you've changed the narrative. You're no longer the family disappointment or their financial savior. You're a capable businesswoman offering a fair partnership with clear boundaries." "I couldn't have done this without you," I said sincerely. "Not just the research, but your perspective throughout this process. You've helped me see both the business realities and the human complexities." Diana smiled. "That's what makes us a good team." Speaking of which, with this new division, my role will need to evolve as well. "I've been thinking about that," I said. "How would you feel about a promotion to Chief Operations Officer? You've essentially been performing that role already, and with the expansion, we'll need your skills even more." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely. You've more than earned it, and not just for your help with my family situation." Diana's expression softened. "Thank you. That means a lot." As we sat there, contemplating the changes ahead, I realized that this family crisis had catalyzed growth and opportunity not just for me, but for the people I valued most. Sometimes transformation comes from unexpected places, even from moments of public humiliation at a holiday dinner table. 6 months later, I stood in the garden of my parents' home, watching the summer sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The property was the same, but much had changed. The interior had been partially remodeled, transforming formal spaces into more functional, welcoming areas. The ostentatious artwork had been sold, replaced with pieces that held personal meaning rather than status value. The occasion was a family dinner, not a holiday obligation, but a genuine celebration. Our new financial technology division had secured its first major client independently of the transferred relationships, a milestone worth acknowledging. The outdoor table was set simply but elegantly, a far cry from the pretentious formal settings of previous gatherings. Diana arrived early, no longer attending as my assistant, but as my chief operations officer and friend. She had flourished in her new role, bringing structure and efficiency to our expanding operations while mentoring younger team members. "The garden looks beautiful," she commented, accepting a glass of wine. "Much more inviting than before." "Mom's discovered she actually enjoys gardening," I explained. "It's been therapeutic for her, creating something with her hands rather than just directing staff." My mother emerged from the house carrying a platter of appetizers she had prepared herself, another significant change. She greeted Diana warmly, asking about her recent presentation at a technology conference. "Vanessa tells me your talk on organizational transformation was quite impressive," she said. "Perhaps you could share some of the key points over dinner?" The genuine interest in my mother's question reflected the distance we had traveled. The family counseling sessions, while initially awkward and occasionally contentious, had gradually fostered more authentic communication. We were learning to listen to each other, to recognize patterns of behavior that had damaged our relationships, and to practice new ways of interacting. My father joined us, looking more relaxed than I could remember seeing him. The pressure of maintaining appearances had aged him prematurely. Relinquishing that burden had reversed the process somewhat. In his role as senior advisor, he had reconnected with his genuine talent for client relationships without the weight of ultimate responsibility. "The new Miller proposal looks promising," he said to me. "Their requirements align well with our capabilities." "I thought so too," I agreed. Diana's team has already started preliminary design concepts. This easy professional exchange would have been unimaginable a year ago, when my father could barely acknowledge my business existed, let alone discuss it as a shared enterprise. Madison and Kenneth arrived next. Their marriage had weathered significant challenges, including the resolution of the malpractice suit, which required a substantial settlement but not career-ending consequences. The experience had humbled Kenneth and strengthened Madison's independence. "Sorry we're a bit late," Madison apologized. The community legal clinic ran over time. This was another change. Madison had started volunteering her legal expertise at a nonprofit serving low-income clients, work she found unexpectedly fulfilling. Tyler was the last to arrive, without Victoria. Their engagement had ended when her parents' political ambitions outweighed their commitment to the relationship. The breakup had been painful but ultimately clarifying for Tyler, forcing him to reconsider what he truly wanted from life rather than what was expected of him. "Traffic was brutal," he explained, accepting a beer from my father. "But the market research report is finished. I'll email it to everyone tomorrow." Tyler's analytical skills had found a productive outlet in our market expansion research. While he remained the most resistant to family therapy, even he had begun to drop some of his defensive posturing, occasionally allowing glimpses of vulnerability and genuine connection. As we gathered around the table, the conversation flowed naturally, touching on business developments, personal interests, and community events. There were still occasional tense moments and old patterns that emerged, but we were developing the tools to recognize and redirect these interactions before they escalated. After dinner, as twilight settled over the garden, my mother raised her glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," she said, "to new beginnings and hard-earned wisdom." We clinked glasses, the simple ritual carrying deeper meaning than all the formal toasts of previous years. Later, as Diana and I prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside. "I wanted to tell you something," he said quietly. "I found some old photos while we were reorganizing. Pictures of you as a child, always creating things, always seeing the world differently than the rest of us." He paused, emotion evident in his voice. "I should have recognized the gift in that, instead of trying to reshape you into something more familiar." The acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you for saying that, Dad." "I'm proud of you, Vanessa," he continued. Not because of your business success, though that's certainly impressive. I'm proud of the person you've become despite our mistakes. Your compassion when you could have chosen retribution. Your vision when we were trapped in old thinking. As Diana drove us back to the city, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The family transformation remained a work in progress, with setbacks and resistance alongside genuine change. The business integration had presented its own challenges, requiring careful management of boundaries and expectations. Yet, underneath the practical complications lay a profound shift in how we related to each other as human beings. Penny for your thoughts? Diana asked, glancing away from the road momentarily. I was just thinking about that holiday dinner, I replied. How one horrible moment led to all of this change. Sometimes humiliation can be transformative, Diana observed. It strips away pretense and forces honesty. True. Though I wouldn't recommend it as a family therapy technique, I joked. Diana laughed. No, definitely not recommended. But in your case, it created an opening for something better. And that was the truth at the heart of this complicated family journey. The painful moment when my mother declared me an embarrassment to the family had ultimately freed me from the need for their approval. Diana's whispered revelation had shifted not just the power dynamic, but my entire understanding of success and failure. Together, these moments had created space for authenticity to replace performance, for connection to replace judgment. True family, I had learned, supports rather than diminishes. True success is defined personally, not by others' standards. And true power comes not from controlling others, but from standing firmly in one's own truth, extending compassion without sacrificing boundaries. As the city skyline came into view, illuminated against the night sky, I felt grateful for the painful catalyst that had started this transformation. Sometimes the most valuable gifts come wrapped in the most difficult packages. Sometimes an ending is really the beginning of something far better than we could have imagined. I hope the story resonated with some of you out there. Have you ever experienced a moment when family criticism turned into an unexpected opportunity for growth? Or a time when standing in your truth changed a relationship for the better? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you found value in this story, please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel for more authentic conversations about family dynamics, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Remember, sometimes the most painful moments can lead to our greatest transformations. Thank you for listening, and I wish you courage on your own journey toward authentic connection. I'm Jessica Davis, 29, and until last week, my parents thought my tech startup was a spectacular failure. The text from my father arrived while I was literally posing for Forbes. Family meeting Sunday, 2 p.m. Everyone will be there. Important discussion about your future. My stomach nodded instantly. After 3 years of my parents questioning my decision to launch a payment solutions app, they were staging what felt like a career intervention. The irony? They had no idea I'd just closed a $15 million funding round. Before I tell you what happened next at that family meeting, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that subscribe button, and stick around to see how my family reacted when they realized they'd been planning my career funeral on the same day Forbes named me to their 30 under 30 list. My journey into entrepreneurship wasn't what my parents had mapped out for their firstborn daughter. Growing up in Westchester County, our middle-class suburban life revolved around stability and traditional success markers. My father, Robert, a senior accountant at the same firm for 27 years, and my mother, Linda, a dedicated third-grade teacher, raised me and my younger sister, Olivia, with unwavering beliefs about career paths. Study hard, graduate from a prestigious university, secure employment with benefits, climb the corporate ladder, retire with a pension. This was their definition of success. Their faces beamed with pride when I graduated from Cornell with my business degree and landed my first job at Deloitte. I wore tailored suits, received regular promotions, and checked every box on their approved life path. Then, everything changed during a weekend business trip to San Francisco. While waiting for my rideshare, I witnessed an elderly immigrant street vendor struggling with a credit card reader that kept declining transactions. Tourists walked away as he frantically tried different angles for reception. That moment crystallized something I'd been thinking about for months: the accessibility gap in financial technology. 3 days later, I couldn't stop sketching ideas for an inclusive payment platform that would work even in low connectivity areas, with minimal technical knowledge required. SecurePay was born on Post-it notes and napkins in my hotel room. The excitement I felt describing my vision to my parents quickly evaporated when their encouraging smiles froze into concerned frowns. "But you just got promoted," my mother reminded me. My father was more direct. "Startups are for people without responsibilities. You have student loans and a promising career track." Only Olivia, finishing her psychology degree at NYU, showed genuine enthusiasm. "This could be revolutionary, Jess," she whispered after our parents went to bed. I quit Deloitte anyway. My first office was a corner desk in a noisy co-working space in Brooklyn, shared with 2 former college classmates who believed in the concept enough to come aboard as co-founders. Tyler handled the technical architecture, while Mia focused on user experience. We lived on coffee, determination, and the modest savings I'd accumulated during my corporate years. The first investor meetings were brutal. "Too niche," said one venture capitalist. "Not scalable," declared another. "Come back when you have users," suggested most. Each rejection strengthened my parents' conviction that I'd made a catastrophic error. Sunday dinners became interrogation sessions. "How long can you sustain this before returning to real work?" my father would ask while passing the mashed potatoes. My mother's approach was subtler, sending job listings from her friends' companies with notes like, "Just keeping options open for you." Then came Marcus Bailey, a retired tech executive who took interest in our prototype during a local startup mixer. His $150,000 angel investment allowed us to refine our product and launch a beta version with 50 local businesses. My parents' skepticism intensified when I missed Thanksgiving to fix an urgent platform bug. "Even doctors come home for holidays," my mother noted in her voicemail. As SecurePay slowly gained traction, I met Sophia Chen, a financial inclusion advocate who became our most valuable advisor. She helped reshape our business strategy to focus first on immigrant-owned small businesses before targeting larger markets. Her guidance was invaluable, but the journey remained grueling. My apartment became a satellite office when we couldn't afford rent on both. I subsisted on instant ramen and discount grocery items while working 18-hour days. The cold reality of entrepreneurship, intense isolation, constant uncertainty, and punishing schedules contrasted sharply with my friends' Instagram posts showing promotions, vacations, and engagement rings. Still, every successful transaction on our platform, every grateful message from a small business owner who could now accept payments reliably, reinforced my conviction. This wasn't just about building a company, it was about solving a real problem that affected real people. Despite eating microwave dinners alone most nights, I felt more purposeful than during my entire corporate career. The early momentum sustained me through the doubtful looks and uncomfortable questions at family gatherings, where relatives seemingly competed to suggest fallback career options. "My company's always hiring and accounting," offered Uncle Richard with a sympathetic pat on my shoulder. Meanwhile, Olivia became my secret supporter, bringing leftovers from family dinners I missed and occasionally helping with customer support emails. In those first 18 months, SecurePay processed over 10,000 transactions for small businesses, an achievement my family politely acknowledged with the enthusiasm usually reserved for participation trophies. They couldn't see what I saw, that we were just getting started. The first major setback hit like a thunderclap on a sunny day. Emerald Ventures, the investment firm that had verbally committed to our Series A round, pulled out suddenly, citing economic headwinds, corporate speak for cold feet. Their promised $1.2 million would have fueled our expansion into 3 new markets and allowed us to hire the sales team we desperately needed. Instead, I found myself conducting the most painful meetings of my life, letting go of our first 2 employees and moving operations from our tiny office into my 1-bedroom apartment in Bushwick. The dining table became our conference room, my sofa converted to a guest bed for late work nights, and my kitchen counter transformed into our mail center. By month's end, I had maxed out 3 credit cards to make payroll and keep our servers running. The financial strain became impossible to hide when my mother's birthday arrived, and I couldn't afford the weekend spa retreat my sister and I traditionally split as a gift. "Just a card is fine," Mom assured me over the phone, her voice carrying that particular tone of disappointment she'd perfected during my teenage years. "I understand things must be tight right now." The following Thanksgiving dinner became a showcase for my apparent failure. Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister with an uncanny ability to weaponize concern, led the charge. "Have you considered teaching business instead of struggling to run one?" she suggested, butter knife poised over her roll like an exclamation point. Cousin Brad, fresh from his MBA and working at his father-in-law's insurance company, offered to review my business model as though I'd created a middle school science project rather than a functioning financial technology platform. My mother cornered me in the kitchen while I rinsed cranberry sauce from serving dishes. Tears welled in her eyes as she gripped my forearm. "Jessica, watching you waste your potential breaks my heart. Your education, your talents, all poured into this experiment. When will you decide enough is enough?" Before I could respond, my father entered with an armful of dessert plates. "The definition of maturity is recognizing when to change course," he stated flatly. "There's no shame in admitting a mistake and returning to a stable path." The conversation might have crushed me completely if not for Uncle Steve, my father's younger brother who'd built a successful real estate empire after dropping out of college. He found me hiding on the back porch, staring into the darkness. "They don't get it because they can't," he said, offering me a glass of bourbon. "Some people aren't wired to understand what drives founders. The uncertainty that terrifies them is the same force that feeds us." His words provided temporary comfort, but the financial reality remained dire. Then came an unexpected turning point at an industry conference I'd scraped together just enough money to attend. I encountered Vanessa Torres, CEO of Payflex, a competitor whose market share I'd envied. Instead of the corporate rivalry I anticipated, Vanessa offered candid advice over coffee. "Your core technology is impressive, but your market approach is backward," she explained. "Stop chasing big accounts. They're already served by established players like us. Focus on the underdog businesses we overlook: food trucks, weekend market vendors, service providers in connectivity-challenged areas." Her guidance sparked a complete pivot. We rebuilt our marketing strategy around the unique needs of micro-entrepreneurs operating in urban connectivity deserts and rural communities. While revamping our entire approach, I missed my family's annual Christmas vacation to the Poconos. My mother's text, "Your chair at dinner feels emptier each holiday," twisted the knife of guilt I'd been trying to ignore. The pivot proved transformative when Handicraft Co-op, a collective of 60 artisans selling handmade goods across 5 weekend markets, signed on as our first significant client. Their coordinator, Emily, praised our solution after a month-long trial. "We've increased sales by 22% since implementing SecurePay, simply because we never miss a transaction now." Despite this breakthrough, my family's perception remained unchanged. In their eyes, I was still the daughter who abandoned a promising career for an entrepreneurial fantasy. My long hours and sparse communication weren't seen as dedication to building something meaningful, but as signs of desperation and failure. At my friend Natalie's wedding, where I served as bridesmaid despite having to step out twice for emergency client calls, relatives circled like concerned vultures. "How's that app thing going?" my grandfather asked, genuine confusion in his eyes about why anyone would leave a prestigious firm to make phone programs. The reception dinner became an extended session of unsolicited career counseling, with suggestions ranging from "consultants make good money" to my personal favorite from my father's colleague: "The FBI is always looking for people with financial backgrounds." That night in my hotel room, surrounded by bridesmaid bouquets and kicked-off heels, I reached my lowest point. The weight of constant doubt, both external and internal, crushed down until breathing felt like an accomplishment. I opened my laptop at 2 a.m., finger hovering over a saved draft of my resume, updated just in case, as my father had suggested. The temptation to surrender had never been stronger. Then a notification pinged, an email from a small business owner in rural Montana. Your system worked during our county power outage when nothing else did. You saved our biggest market day of the year. I stared at those words until they blurred through tears, then closed my resume file without sending it. At 3 a.m., fueled by gas station coffee and renewed determination, I sketched out an entirely new feature, offline transaction processing with delayed verification, that would become our signature innovation. Missing Olivia's NYU graduation ceremony marked a significant fracture in our family dynamics. Her psychology department honors should have brought us all together in celebration, but I was in San Francisco pitching to Horizon Ventures, an investor group known for backing socially impactful technology. The meeting couldn't be rescheduled, and the potential investment represented survival for secure pay. My mother's response to my absence transcended her usual disappointment, entering a glacial coldness I hadn't experienced before. Some moments can't be recaptured with apology flowers, Jessica, she texted alongside a family photo where my absence created an obvious gap. For weeks afterward, our conversations became perfunctory exchanges of essential information, punctuated by passive-aggressive comments about my fantasy business, taking precedence over real-life milestones. My father adopted a different approach, forwarding job listings with alarming regularity. Financial analyst at Goldman Sachs, they value entrepreneurial experience, read one subject line. Senior consultant position, flexible hours for those with family commitments, suggested another, implying my absence from family gatherings indicated a character flaw rather than the necessary sacrifice of a founder. The Independence Day barbecue at my parents' house transformed into an interrogation chamber when extended family arrived. Positioned beside the grill, Uncle Richard questioned my business model between flipping burgers. So you process payments like PayPal but smaller? He summarized incorrectly, nodding with exaggerated understanding. Aunt Patricia cornered me by the cooler, wine glass perpetually full as she suggested that entrepreneurial fixation might benefit from therapeutic intervention. Rachel's son had similar trouble letting go of his band dreams, she whispered conspiratorially. 3 sessions with Dr. Brennan, and he was happily enrolled in dental school. The breaking point came when my cousin Matthew, a junior loan officer at Chase who still lived in his parents' basement, offered me an entry-level position when you're ready to get serious again. My father overhead and nodded approvingly. It's good to have options, especially from family who understand your situation. Something combustible ignited inside me. My situation? I repeated, voice rising despite my attempts at control. You mean building a company that's now processing over 50,000 transactions monthly for businesses that were previously excluded from digital commerce? The backyard fell silent as heads turned toward our confrontation. Those numbers sound impressive until you calculate the actual revenue, my father countered, accountant instinct surfacing. With your transaction fees, that's barely sustainable. You've never once asked about our business model or revenue structure, I shot back. You decided this was a failure before I even began. The argument escalated until I found myself shouting something about suffocating expectations, while my mother burst into tears. I left abruptly, ignoring relatives' uncomfortable expressions and my father's demand to act like an adult. 3 weeks of silence followed, broken only when Olivia appeared at my apartment door unannounced, pizza and wine in hand. They're worried but showing it all wrong, she explained, surveying my living room with its whiteboards covered in code snippets and market strategies. This doesn't look like failure to me. She examined our analytics dashboard displaying real-time transaction data across the country. You've never actually shown them this, have you? She asked. They wouldn't understand or care. I responded, the bitterness in my voice surprising even me. The unexpected ally emerged in my grandmother Ruth, who called one evening after what must have been another family discussion about my poor life choices. I had a business idea once, she revealed, her voice carrying across 78 years of life experience. A tailoring service for working women in the 60s. Your grandfather thought it was cute but impractical. I listened and spent 40 years wondering what if. Don't spend your life wondering, Jessica. Her words fortified me against the next blow. My father emailing an article entitled Millennials and the Startup Delusion, When to Admit Defeat. The subject line read only, food for thought. Despite the family drama, SecurePay continued gaining momentum. We secured a partnership with Frontier Financial, a regional bank looking to expand its services to underserved communities. Their institutional backing provided both credibility and the capital needed to enhance our platform. This success remained invisible to my parents, who had by then adopted a policy of deliberate ignorance toward my business. My mother casually informed neighbors that I was between jobs but exploring opportunities, while my father brushed off questions about my career with vague references to tech experiments. The silence between us grew until one night, after a particularly brutal investor meeting where we'd been questioned about our long-term viability, I called my mentor Sophia in tears. "They've never believed in me," I sobbed into the phone. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm delusional." Sophia's response was gentle but firm. "The only delusion here is thinking their approval determines your success. Would you abandon your users who depend on your service just because your family doesn't understand it?" The conversation steadied me enough to focus on our upcoming presentation at the Financial Innovation Summit in Chicago. Unknown to me, a Forbes journalist attended our workshop on financial inclusion technology. Her follow-up questions seemed routine at the time. I had no idea she was considering us for recognition that would change everything. The email came 3 weeks later. Forbes 30 Under 30 nomination, interview request. I nearly marked it as spam before recognizing the sender's credentials. After the verification call and photo shoot, I was sworn to secrecy until the official announcement. The weight of this imminent validation pressed against the dam of family disapproval, creating a strange limbo where I simultaneously felt like both a failure and success. The text message from my father arrived precisely at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Family meeting Sunday, 2 p.m. Everyone will be there. Important discussion about your future. No context, no explanation, just 12 words that sent my anxieties spiraling to unprecedented heights. The rest of the week unfolded in slow-motion dread as I mentally prepared counterarguments to every possible scenario. Would they present an ultimatum? Had they consulted a financial advisor about my situation? The Forbes announcement wouldn't go live until Monday, one day too late to shield me from whatever intervention they had planned. Olivia's warning text on Friday only intensified my apprehension. "They've talked to everyone about you. Grandma, uncles, even Pastor Mike from their church. This is bigger than usual." Sunday arrived with merciless sunshine, mockingly cheerful against my mood as I parked outside my childhood home. The driveway already overflowed with familiar vehicles: Aunt Patricia's Mercedes, Uncle Richard's pickup truck, Cousin Matthew's leased BMW. Taking a deep breath, I reminded myself that I was the founder of a successful fintech company, not a teenager being summoned for punishment. The tableau that greeted me inside confirmed my worst fears. The living room had been rearranged into what resembled a therapy circle, with chairs positioned to face a single seat obviously intended for me. My mother's eyes were rimmed red from crying, while my father stood with arms crossed, expression grim beneath his silver-flecked hair. Relatives filled every available space, their faces displaying variations of concern, judgment, and uncomfortable anticipation. "Jessica," my father began after minimal greetings were exchanged. "We've asked everyone here because we all care about your future. It's time for a realistic family discussion about your situation." The word situation hung in the air like a verdict. Aunt Patricia nodded vigorously, her statement necklace clinking with the movement. "We're here to discuss your failing company," Dad announced to everyone, voice carrying the authoritative tone he'd used when discussing serious matters throughout my childhood. Mom nodded sadly beside him, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "This intervention comes from a place of love," she added softly. One by one, family members delivered prepared statements that felt rehearsed, yet sincere in their misguided concern. Uncle Richard outlined the harsh realities of business failure statistics. 90% of startups fail within 3 years, he explained, as though this was revolutionary information I'd never encountered. You're approaching that milestone with no significant market breakthrough. Aunt Patricia described her friend's daughter, who had bounced back beautifully after her own business collapsed, now happily managing a department store. There's no shame in recognizing when a dream isn't viable, she assured me, voice dripping with condescension masked as compassion. Cousin Matthew, emboldened by the supportive environment, offered to completely revamp my LinkedIn profile and resume. My company's recruitment team owes me a favor. They could fast-track you into customer service, maybe even assistant management with your background. Each statement hammered another nail into the coffin of their perception of my career, constructed entirely without my input or accurate information. The culminating blow came when my father stood, hands in pockets, to deliver what was clearly the main address. "Your mother and I have made a difficult decision," he announced, glancing toward Mom for confirmation. She nodded tearfully. "We've taken out a second mortgage on the house. We want to provide you with a fresh start, enough to clear your debts and support you while you transition back to traditional employment." The room fell silent as the magnitude of their misunderstanding dawned on me. They had leveraged their retirement security based on assumptions about my business without once asking for actual data or financials. The fury building inside me must have shown on my face despite my efforts to maintain composure. I opened my mouth to respond when Olivia, who had been uncharacteristically quiet while scrolling through her phone, suddenly gasped loudly enough to draw everyone's attention. Her eyes widened as she stared at her screen, color draining from her face. "Oh my God," she whispered, then looked up at me. For a terrifying second, I feared more bad news, until she turned her phone toward the family gathering. "Why is your face on Forbes 30 Under 30 list?" The question sliced through the tension like a thunderclap. My sister's voice rose with each word as she processed what she was seeing. Jessica Davis, founder of Secure Pay, revolutionizing financial inclusion technology for underserved markets, she read incredulously. "Valued at..." She stopped, double-checking the number before continuing. $28 million following their latest funding round? The absolute silence that followed felt eternal. Every eye in the room swiveled between Olivia's phone and my face, searching for confirmation or denial. My father lunged forward, snatching the phone from Olivia's hand with uncharacteristic abruptness. His eyes scanned the article, face transforming through confusion, disbelief, and finally, the emotion that hurt most to witness, embarrassment. "This can't be right," he muttered, fingers frantically scrolling through the piece. "This must be a different Jessica Davis." Mom rushed to peer over his shoulder, her tearful expression morphing into stunned bewilderment. "That's definitely our Jessica in the photo," she confirmed, voice barely audible. Aunt Patricia abandoned all pretense of composure, scrambling from her seat to view the screen. "Forbes?" she repeated, as though the publication's name itself was a foreign concept. "The Forbes?" Uncle Richard adjusted his glasses, confusion etched across his features. "Is this some kind of publicity stunt?" he questioned, the implication that I might have manufactured the recognition somehow even more insulting than their previous assumptions of failure. The fortress of misconceptions they had built around my career was crumbling visibly before my eyes, leaving them exposed and disoriented in its collapse. The heavy silence stretching across my parents' living room felt tangible enough to touch. 20 pairs of eyes fixed on me, waiting for explanation, confirmation, or perhaps confession that this was all some elaborate hoax. I stood slowly, feeling steadier than I had in years within these walls. The Forbes recognition wasn't supposed to go public until tomorrow. I began, my voice surprisingly calm. "But yes, that's me, and those numbers are accurate." I watched my father sink heavily onto the couch, Forbes' article still displayed on Olivia's phone clutched in his hand. My mother covered her mouth, eyes darting between me and the screen as though reconciling two irreconcilable realities. Cousin Matthew stuttered. "But you work from your apartment. Your clothes are from last season. You drove here in a 10-year-old Honda." His evident confusion about how success could exist without ostentatious displays of wealth might have been amusing under different circumstances. "We closed our Series B funding round last week," I continued, addressing the entire room but focusing primarily on my parents. $15 million from Elevation Partners and Global Venture Fund, with an additional strategic investment from Horizon Financial. Our valuation now stands at $28 million. I paused, allowing the numbers to sink in. We have over 600,000 active users across 43 states. Our transaction volume exceeded $30 million last quarter. The statistics I'd tracked obsessively, celebrated privately, and never shared with my family now tumbled forth, each figure dismantling another layer of their misconception. Our technology serves businesses in connectivity deserts, rural communities, urban micro-entrepreneurs, and immigrant-owned establishments previously excluded from digital commerce. We've processed payments during 3 natural disasters when traditional systems failed completely. My sister beamed proudly while my father's expression cycled through visible calculations, his accountant's mind finally engaging with my business on its actual terms rather than his assumptions. Aunt Patricia recovered first, social survival instincts kicking in as she adjusted her narrative with breathtaking speed. "I always told Linda you had that special entrepreneurial spirit," she declared, conveniently forgetting her therapy recommendation from 30 minutes earlier. "The family has always believed in you." The audacity nearly made me laugh. Uncle Richard cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well, this changes the conversation considerably," he observed unnecessarily. "Have you considered expanding into commercial real estate payment processing? My company could potentially." I raised my hand, stopping his pivot from intervention participant to business opportunist mid-sentence. "I appreciate the sudden interest in collaboration," I stated firmly, "but that's not why we're here. We're here because not one person in this room, except perhaps Olivia, ever bothered to actually ask about my business beyond superficial questions designed to confirm your preconceptions." The directness silenced the room again. My mother's eyes welled with fresh tears, but these seemed different from the earlier ones, realization rather than pity. "Why didn't you tell us?" she whispered. The question ignited something I'd suppressed during years of dismissal. I tried, repeatedly. "But you were so convinced of my inevitable failure that you interpreted every sign of progress as delusion on my part." I turned toward my father, whose complexion had paled considerably. "You sent me job listings during the same week we were finalizing our partnership with Frontier Financial. You told relatives I was between opportunities while I was literally speaking at industry conferences." My voice remained level but gained intensity with each example. "When I missed family gatherings, you assumed it was because I was ashamed, not because I was building something meaningful. You took out a second mortgage without once asking to see our financial statements or business plan." The weight of these truths settled visibly on my parents' shoulders. My father placed Olivia's phone on the coffee table, his hands slightly trembling. "We thought we were protecting you from yourself," he admitted quietly. "We were wrong." His acknowledgement, however insufficient, represented the first crack in a wall of misunderstanding that had separated us for years. Cousin Rebecca, who worked in public relations and had remained silent throughout the intervention, suddenly perked up. "The Forbes recognition is a massive PR opportunity," she declared, professional instincts overriding family drama. "You'll need media training before the television requests start coming in." Her assumption that I would need her services might have irritated me in the past, but now it simply highlighted how completely they had misunderstood my capabilities. "Our communications team has already prepared for the announcement," I explained. "We have interviews scheduled with CNBC and Bloomberg next week." Grandmother Ruth, who had observed the entire scene with remarkable composure, finally spoke up from her corner chair. "I always said Jessica had Clara's spirit," she remarked, referring to her entrepreneurial sister who had run a successful millinery business in the 1940s. Her quiet pride felt like the only authentic support in the room. I addressed the gathering once more, establishing boundaries that should have existed long ago. "Moving forward, I'd appreciate if everyone would respect my professional judgment the same way you'd respect a doctor's medical opinion or a lawyer's legal advice. I've built something significant, and while I welcome actual interest in understanding my work, I won't entertain further interventions based on misconceptions." My mother nodded slowly, acceptance mixed with lingering confusion in her expression. "Will you stay for dinner?" she asked tentatively, reverting to her default comfort mechanism of feeding people through complicated situations. "I have that spinach lasagna you like." The normalcy of her question against the backdrop of such extraordinary revelation struck me as both absurd and touching. "Not today, Mom," I replied gently. "I have preparations to make for tomorrow's official announcement." As I gathered my belongings to leave, relatives approached with awkward congratulations and business cards, their earlier concern morphing seamlessly into networking opportunities. I exited with measured dignity, neither gloating nor diminishing the significance of what had transpired. The validation I had secretly craved from my family had finally arrived, but its value had diminished during the years I spent learning to believe in myself without it. Walking to my 10-year-old Honda, actually a 7-year-old Civic I'd chosen for practicality rather than status, I felt lighter than I had in years, unburdened from the weight of their disapproval which I'd carried far longer than necessary. The Forbes announcement ignited a firestorm across social media and industry publications. My carefully curated LinkedIn profile, previously generating perhaps a dozen views weekly, suddenly attracted thousands of connection requests from investors, potential partners, and curious onlookers. The SecurePay website crashed briefly under unprecedented traffic, prompting our development team to work through the night implementing emergency scaling solutions. By Wednesday, my calendar overflowed with interview requests, speaking invitations, and congratulatory messages from people who had previously ignored my emails. Our modest co-working space suddenly felt inadequate as reporters requested office visits and promotional photos. Within 2 weeks, we signed a lease on proper headquarters in downtown Brooklyn, 3,000 square feet of legitimate office space with conference rooms, dedicated workstations, and a kitchen that didn't double as someone's bedroom. The team expanded rapidly from 8 to 23 employees, including several specialists who would have been beyond our reach just months earlier. Amidst this whirlwind of positive change, my personal phone remained conspicuously quiet from one particular category of contacts: family. The silence broke on the 10th day after the intervention, when an arrangement of congratulatory flowers arrived at our new office. The card read simply, "We are proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad." No apology, no acknowledgement of their misjudgment. Just 5 words that somehow carried both genuine sentiment and stunning inadequacy. Olivia became the unofficial family ambassador, relaying information in both directions with diplomatic neutrality. "They're processing," she explained during our weekly coffee meetup. "Dad's reading everything published about SecurePay. Mom's telling anyone who'll listen that her daughter is revolutionizing financial technology, though I'm pretty sure she still doesn't understand what that actually means." The extended family's reaction proved predictably opportunistic. Uncle Richard emailed a detailed prospectus for potential investment opportunities in SecurePay. As early-stage family backers, the proposal suggested, though he had never offered a dollar or a word of encouragement before the Forbes recognition. Aunt Patricia invited me to speak at her country club's women's leadership luncheon, suddenly positioning herself as my longtime supporter and mentor. Cousin Matthew requested an informational interview about transitioning from banking to fintech, his previous condescension replaced with transparent networking ambitions. I established clear professional boundaries with relative-turned opportunists while focusing on the exponential challenges of managing sudden growth and attention. The authentic relationships within the company culture became increasingly precious as external validation threatened to distort priorities. We implemented weekly team lunches where everyone from newest hires to founding members shared ideas without hierarchy. These sessions produced some of our most innovative solutions while fostering genuine camaraderie during intense scaling pressures. My mother initiated weekly phone calls, awkward at first, but gradually evolving into something resembling normal parent-child communication. She asked actual questions about my work, though her understanding remained superficial. "I told my book club about your payment processing for rural areas," she mentioned during one call. "Brenda's daughter has trouble with internet at her farm in Vermont and wants to know if your app would work there." These small connections, however basic, represented more genuine interest than she'd shown in the previous 3 years combined. My father's approach to reconciliation took longer and followed a different path. He requested financial projections and business plans, engaging with SecurePay through the analytical framework he understood. His eventual email, "Your unit economics are impressive. Sustainable growth model with strong protective moat around core technology," constituted high praise in his language, though it lacked any personal acknowledgement of our fractured relationship. The most surreal moment came when I hired Alexis Chen, a former Deloitte colleague who had openly questioned my sanity when I resigned to launch SecurePay. "I thought you were having a quarter-life crisis," she admitted during her interview. "Now everyone at the firm uses you as the example of taking the right risk at the right time." Her candor was refreshing, and her skills in operational scaling made her an ideal addition to our executive team. As our visibility increased, so did criticism from established players in the financial technology space. A particularly scathing analysis from a competing CEO questioned our security protocols and long-term viability. The attack momentarily transported me back to family dinners filled with doubt until my sister's unexpected intervention. Olivia arrived at my apartment unannounced, brandishing takeout and determination. "You're spiraling," she diagnosed accurately. "Remember what you told me about entrepreneurship? New levels, new devils. These critics are just confirmation you're disrupting something valuable." Her psychology background, combined with authentic sisterly support, provided perspective I couldn't find elsewhere. "Besides," she added while serving Thai food onto mismatched plates, "I've been thinking about joining SecurePay after I finish my doctorate." The casual revelation stunned me. "You want to work for the company?" Olivia nodded, suddenly serious. "I've been following your progress more closely than anyone. There's a huge opportunity to apply behavioral economics to financial inclusion. Plus," she grinned, "someone needs to translate tech speak into language Mom can understand." The possibility of working alongside the one family member who had consistently believed in SecurePay created a bridge between my professional world and personal history I hadn't realized I needed. Our parents' first official visit to company headquarters occurred 6 months after the intervention debacle. My father moved through the office like an appraiser, noting details from the ergonomic furniture to the enterprise-grade network infrastructure, with approving nods. My mother charmed the entire staff with her genuine interest in their backgrounds and roles, somehow distributing homemade cookies despite my explicit request for professional boundaries. The visit concluded with an unexpected moment of vulnerability from my father. Studying our live transaction dashboard displaying payment volumes across the country, he cleared his throat uncomfortably. "I never saw this," he admitted quietly. "In my mind, you were working on some small app in your apartment. This is." He gestured toward the operations floor where 24 professionals collaborated on enterprise-level financial technology. "Significant. I should have asked to see it sooner." The acknowledgement wasn't quite an apology, but from a man who had built his identity around financial prudence and risk aversion, it represented monumental growth. The Thanksgiving following the Forbes recognition marked our family's first holiday gathering since the intervention. I arrived not as the disappointing daughter pursuing an impractical dream, but as the successful founder featured in business publications. The shift in dynamic was palpable as relatives who had once offered job referrals now asked about hiring opportunities at SecurePay. "My son's graduating with a computer science degree," Uncle Richard mentioned casually. "Any internship possibilities?" Despite the temptation to indulge in petty satisfaction, I found greater peace in simply occupying my new reality with neither resentment nor validation seeking. The family script had been permanently rewritten, not because I had proven them wrong, but because I had remained true to my vision regardless of their approval. 1 year after the Forbes recognition changed everything, I stood at the window of our expanded headquarters overlooking the Brooklyn skyline, reflecting on the journey's unexpected turns. SecurePay now employed 78 people across 3 offices, processed over $80 million in monthly transactions, and had just launched our foundation supporting financial literacy in underserved communities. The company's growth brought new challenges daily, but nothing compared to those early years of building something while surrounded by doubt. The anger that once fueled late-night coding sessions and defiant pitch meetings had gradually transformed into something more constructive: understanding. My parents hadn't opposed my dreams out of malice, but from genuine fear for my security and happiness, as they defined it. Their generation witnessed economic instability that shaped deep-rooted beliefs about professional safety. Their criticism, however painful, came from love filtered through fear rather than deliberate undermining. This realization helped me create SecurePay's mentorship program specifically tailored for entrepreneurs from similar backgrounds, those building businesses without family support or understanding. The program paired founders with experienced mentors who provided both technical guidance and emotional strategies for navigating unsupportive environments. 23 entrepreneurs completed our first cohort, several securing their initial funding rounds. My relationship with my mother evolved through intentional, honest conversations. During a quiet dinner at my apartment, she finally articulated what had driven her opposition. "We watched you struggle in ways you tried to hide," she explained, twisting her wedding ring nervously. "The missed family events, the weight loss, how tired you looked during holidays. We interpreted those as signs of failure because we couldn't imagine them as necessary sacrifices for something worthwhile." Her explanation didn't erase the past, but offered context that helped me release lingering resentment. "I wish you had believed in me enough to ask about my vision instead of assuming failure," I responded gently. "But I understand you were trying to protect me from what you saw as inevitable disappointment." This exchange marked the beginning of genuine healing between us, with my mother gradually becoming one of SecurePay's most enthusiastic advocates, though she still occasionally sent job listings, just in case something interesting catches your eye. My father's evolution took longer, but ultimately reached greater depth. His first visit to our company headquarters had initiated change, but the real breakthrough occurred unexpectedly during a father-daughter lunch 6 months later. "I've been reviewing your presentations to investors," he admitted, having apparently studied recordings available online. "Your grasp of financial projections and risk management is exceptional. You're actually better at this than I would have been." Coming from him, this represented extraordinary acknowledgement. "I didn't just doubt your business," he continued, maintaining eye contact despite evident discomfort with emotional transparency. "I doubted your judgment, which was unforgivable considering your education and abilities." "I was wrong, Jessica." His direct admission of error meant more than any accolade or funding announcement. "I forgive you, Dad," I responded simply. "And I'd value your financial insights on our expansion plans, if you're willing to offer them." This invitation to contribute his expertise represented our new foundation, mutual professional respect alongside our personal connection. The following Thanksgiving dinner unfolded with remarkable normalcy compared to previous years. No interrogations about career choices, no thinly veiled suggestions about real jobs, just families sharing a meal with newfound respect for different paths to fulfillment. My sister Olivia had indeed joined SecurePay after completing her psychology doctorate, heading our behavioral economics research division with remarkable success. Her presence created a bridge between my professional and personal worlds that helped integrate previously conflicting aspects of my identity. Speaking at Cornell's business school provided unexpected closure as I addressed students in the same auditorium where I'd once absorbed the traditional career wisdom I later abandoned. "The greatest challenge in entrepreneurship isn't securing funding or building technology," I told them. "It's maintaining conviction when everyone whose opinion matters tells you you're mistaken." Sometimes the most valuable skill is knowing when to listen to advice and when to trust your vision despite universal opposition. A young woman approached afterward, describing her family's resistance to her software startup. "How did you handle the constant doubt from people you love?" she asked, her expression reflecting the same isolation I had experienced. "Build a support system of people who understand your journey," I advised. "But also recognize that family opposition often comes from genuine concern, not desire to undermine you. Their fear for your security can look like lack of faith in your abilities." This perspective, impossible during my struggling years, now came naturally, illustrating my own growth alongside the company's. Meeting monthly with a founder facing similar family dynamics became both mentorship and therapy. Madison Chen had developed an innovative educational platform while her immigrant parents pressured her to pursue medical school. Our conversations helped her establish boundaries while understanding her parents' perspective, ultimately leading to cautious support from her family as her company gained recognition. You showed me it's possible to succeed without family approval while still leaving room for reconciliation later, she told me during our last session before her major product launch. Perhaps the most profound reconciliation occurred during a private moment with my father following a major industry award ceremony where SecurePay received recognition for financial inclusion innovation. He had attended alongside my mother, watching from the audience as I accepted the award and acknowledged the team's contributions. "I understand now why you couldn't give up," he said quietly as we waited for our car outside the venue. "You saw something real that the rest of us couldn't see." His words acknowledged both my vision and his limitations in a way that completed a circle of understanding between us. "I needed to prove it to myself, not to anyone else," I responded, realizing the truth of this statement only as I spoke it. "Though I wish you could have taken the journey with me rather than waiting for validation at the destination." He nodded solemnly. "That's the gift you're giving other entrepreneurs through your mentorship program, companions for the journey. It's more valuable than any investment." The wisdom in his observation confirmed how much our relationship had evolved from the intervention day when he'd concluded I was delusional. Maintaining authenticity through success proved challenging in unexpected ways. As SecurePay attracted acquisition offers and partnership opportunities, outside voices pushed for decisions that contradicted our core mission of financial inclusion. The principles that guided me through doubt and struggle remained essential during prosperity and recognition. "Success changes the voices around you, not the voice within you," became my mantra during particularly difficult decisions. The journey from misunderstood founder to recognized innovator taught me that external validation, whether from family, investors, or media, ultimately matters less than fidelity to authentic vision and impact. The intervention my family staged to save me from entrepreneurial failure now serves as a powerful reminder that conviction sometimes requires continuing forward when everyone who loves you believes you're heading toward disaster. Their inability to see my potential wasn't failure of love but limitation of perspective. Have you ever pursued something important despite everyone telling you it wouldn't work? Drop a comment below sharing how you maintained your conviction during those challenging times. I'd love to hear your stories of persistence against the odds. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more authentic entrepreneur experiences. And remember, sometimes the people who love you most understand your dreams least, but that doesn't make either your love or your dreams less valid. Thank you for joining me for this story, and I hope it inspires you to trust your vision even when no one else can see it yet. Share this with someone who needs this reminder today.